Welcome everyone to another webinar here hosted by Affinity Management Services. We want to thank you all again for being here. Today we have a critical topic that been a webinar we've been wanting to do. However, we decided to do it with the best of the best. So I want to take a minute to say thank you to Andre and as well as Scott for joining us here today. Cybersecurity has become a big thing. I know Andre has been on several news channels talking about it, the challenges that our associations are having. While many of us in the association space don't believe that we could be vulnerable to cyber attacks or have to deal with this, in reality, it's becoming much more prominent. And associations, or I should say, these individuals that are doing these attacks are realizing that associations have a lot of money, and there's opportunities for them to take advantage of us CAMs when we're busy or self-managed communities, whatever it may be. So before we get the webinar started, I wanted to give Andre and Scott an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, Scott, since you're here at the bottom of the screen. If you want to say something about yourself and the firm you represent.
Sure. My name is Scott Evans. I'm the founder of a firm called TechGC. We're a technology consulting firm for high-rise buildings, commercial, any type of building type systems, whether they're new or old. And we have about 13 SMEs in our service. Andre happens to be one of them. And we offer consulting to property managers, to boards, to developers, anybody looking to upgrade their technology to compete in this market. We come in and can give you a honest opinion and look at it from a we don't sell anything other than our services. So that's what we do, and we try to get the word out on anything and everything as far as new technology and what's happening.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Scott. I know that you're an expert in your space, so appreciate you taking the time today to do this webinar with us. So next up is Andre.
Thank you so much, Raphael, and hello, everyone. So Reginald Andre, but I go by my last name, Andre, and I've been in the condo association game probably since around 2000s when South Beach was starting to build on up and the icon of South Beaches and all of those buildings were starting. I was involved in a lot of those projects. So over our history, we've probably done about 150 condos. We've helped open TCO about 60 of those. So we're really involved in the condo industry, and we provide the cybersecurity and the IT services for them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andre. Again, I know we've worked together in the past, and it's always a pleasure, number one, speaking to you and leveraging your experience. So thank you so much for being here with us today. As for myself, my name is Raphael Aquino. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Affinity Management Services. We're a community association management company. Really, what we do here best is helping our community association leaders accomplish their vision. We do that through our proven process: align, execute, deliver, making sure we align to your vision, helping you execute that vision with regular check-ins, and delivering guaranteed results. So thank you again for being here today. So I think you're here more to learn a little bit more about cybersecurity and its importance. So I guess I'll kick it off with you, Andre. You being in the space, the amount of time that you've been in the space dealing with all types of product, whether it be luxury, whether it be mid-rise, whether it be HOAs. Talk to me a little bit about cybersecurity and how crucial it is for both condos and HOAs.
Yeah, things have changed. I'm sure you've seen the news, you've seen government, hospitals, everybody getting hacked. And things have changed and cyber threats are way up. And I remember back in, 2010s-ish, where, we were just known as the IT guy, hey, we need to set up a computer at the front desk, the concierge, we need to get Wi-Fi. But, as Raphael, as you mentioned, hackers realized that, wow, these associations have budgets and they have a great time in making sure that their lobbies and their pools look good. But then many times their back of the house is deficient, such as their firewalls and their servers and things like that. And of course, a lot of things have moved to the cloud. But one of the reasons why our business had to pivot is because as we were that, IT guy and computer guy, we started to see that, our clients were getting hacked. We would get phone calls. Oh my gosh, we can't see our files. our computers are not operable. Someone downloaded something. And that's when we realized, like, wow, we really have to do something, because if I'm a hacker and I know this particular building has 300, multi-millionaires, because there's 300,
Mhm.
am I going to be that Nigerian prince and try to go after each individual one? Or do I go after the manager who has all of this information? Think about, what the manager has when someone is moving in. They have the background checks. They have maybe the rental information. They have the pet dogs information. And that's a security question a lot of times. So hackers realize if they can go after that one manager's computer and assistant manager's computer, they now have a huge treasure trove of all of these unit owners' information.
That makes total sense. And the way you mentioned, I mean, many of these associations can have budgets in excess of 5 million. And again, it's important for our listeners to understand that even if it's not 5 million, you still could be at threat. And I think Andre, you're going to show us here about a case in Key Biscayne in a bit. So I wanted to bring you, Scott, into the conversation. So you've been in the industry for a very long time as well, implementing different products within these associations. What are your thoughts of how crucial this is for condos and HOAs?
Well, I think it's an overlooked thing. Everybody's kind of goes through their day and they said, no, this can't really affect me, and it does. Where we really spend a lot of time is looking at infrastructure, because there's many holes in associations systems. And what happens is somebody comes in and goes, oh, we need a Wi-Fi router over here, and they stick a Wi-Fi router. It's not tied to the network. We don't know about it. It's got a password that's probably defaulted. So things like that occur. Company comes into a mid-rise and they're adding a new parking system, or they're adding a call box. They put a system in. There's holes in that. So we tend to look at everything when we come out and we do site surveys for customers. We want to look at the entire building. We want to do survey all their network, see what's there, and then be able to tell them, look, you have holes here, here, and here, and this is how we fix them. So
Yeah,
that's the important piece, because you never know where the hack is coming. It could come internal. It could be somebody's kid figured out how to get on the network and they're bored at home, and all this next thing you know, they're into the system.
I can't tell you how many times, we take on properties and they have these open networks that are actually tied to the main network of the association. They're like, well, no, we don't want to put a password because it's just easier that way for the residents to log in, and they don't realize the vulnerabilities that they have. I mean, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, are you on an open network? When we go somewhere, I go, are you nuts? So people don't understand, they're just really looking for a quick fix, or let me just get on Wi-Fi really quick, but they don't understand the impacts that can have. I mean, you see it in Starbucks, you see it in everywhere else, and people have no idea that they just opened up their phone, or however they're connected to the entire world. But so Andre, I know you have a specific example, and I know you have a couple, but I think it would be great if you could share a recent example of an incident that has affected a community. I know prior to the webinar we were talking about the incident in Key Biscayne, so maybe if you give some insights, what was the impact, and what's the association going through, at least from what you know right now from that.
Yeah, so Key Biscayne Botanica, which is in Key Biscayne, Florida, and they are part of a larger association where now you have a master involved. And every quarter, you have the Key Biscayne Botanica sending a master payment over to the master, 105,000 to be exact. So what happened in this scenario, and this is just last year in January, is that you had the email of Botanica compromised. So they didn't have the proper security. Someone got into that email. And typically when a hacker gets into someone's email, they're in there for 90 days before they do anything. And what they're doing during those 90 days is that they're reading the threads, they're seeing what kind of information, who are they talking to, what any password saved on these emails. Maybe you sent your admin, the password for your Microsoft account or the bank account. They're checking for all of this. And what they found is they said, wow, every quarter, Botanica pays master $105,000. So what did they do? They went on GoDaddy or one of those websites, and they created a new domain name for the master association. They just added one extra letter. And then from there, they sent an email probably using ChatGPT, because these criminals are not here in South Florida. They're not here in the United States, and they use GPT to make an email to say, hey, you normally pay us $105,000 every quarter, but we're changing our bank account. Please send it here. The admin received it, said, oh, okay, no problem. Change the ACH information. Just like that, $105,000 is wired internationally. Anything wired internationally, you're pretty much not going to get it back. And a couple of months later, Master's calling Botanica, hey, what's going on? We got to pay the tennis court. We got to pay the lights. Like, where's the money? And they're like, what do you mean? We sent the money. And then when they started doing the research, they realized that the email account was compromised. And now, as of about 5-6 months ago, last time I checked, based on this article, they're suing each other. They're going to have to do a special assessment, and it's crazy. So
Wow.
just like that, and you would think a 5-minute phone call, just, hey, I just want to make sure this is you. But just like that, $105,000 went missing at Botanica.
Yeah, no, that's an insane story, and especially for anyone losing $105,000, it's a lot. But even more so for a community association when nonprofit organization, they're not working. Okay, well, it's a hit of X dollars or X percentage. This is straight to the bottom line for them. So, it's sad because they're maybe getting smarter and starting to see the vulnerabilities. As managers. We're busy on the day-to-day operation, but also there was probably some gaps, in the protocols that should be followed. I know from our side, we're constantly being attacked, whether it be from the employee side. Hey, we want to change our ACH. We want to change how you pay us, and we've had to put policies in place that, okay, in order to make these changes, these are the steps that need to be followed. And it's a shame now that there's going to be an internal battle, and I'm sure there's a ton of finger pointing that's going on, and it's probably going to take a while before that comes into play. And just to touch up, I know none of us are insurance experts, but many times insurance agents are selling you cybersecurity, right? And what people don't realize is that there's a lot of hoops that need to be jumped in order for that policy to kick in. Many times they just sign off and they don't know what they're signing off. They don't understand everything that comes with it. But it's not as simple as saying, hey, pass this on to the insurance company. So, yeah, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, it's they don't cover gross negligence. And in this case, it would have been because they actually went in. It's not like they woke up in the morning and $105,000 is missing. They actually filled out the form and sent the information. So, hey, it was your fault.
Yep, that's correct, 100%. So Scott, from your experience, have you seen anything similar to this? What are your thoughts with what occurred there at Botanica?
It's a procedure thing. I mean, think about it. Even your own personnel and the staff that you have working there, they don't understand cybersecurity, and that's why we're doing these seminars and trying to get the word out and get people educated. You got to take that extra step to, a 5-minute phone call would have prevented $105,000 loss. But do they know that they need to do that? When you create policies and procedures are great and you love them, but do the staff follow them? Does your staff understand the importance of certain things, financial things? I've heard of a couple other cases that, yeah, it happened. Story from Andrea happened to a big construction company. They wired some money because they were told to, and guess what? They had internal checks and balances in, but they didn't follow them, and they lost money. And so, those are the things that, it's all well and good to put policies and procedures, but if you don't follow them, so how do you prevent that? Some of it's automation, some of it's putting the right software, and some of it's, guess what, guys, you're going to have to spend some money.
Yeah.
Save yourself from yourself, because a lot of these smaller associations, like you said, they leave the password off the Wi-Fi, because it's easier. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. But 10 years ago that was okay. Right now we're in a time when with chat GPs and AIs and everything else, those guys are making stuff just as fast as we find a way to squash it. And there's other things you can do, regular annual checkups on your system. have us come out once a year and check the system, make sure that all these are replaced. Nobody's put something in that you've missed, things like that. There's monitors that can be put on systems so that if there's a change, it alerts you. So, there's all kinds of things, but it's going to have to be put in the budgets. They're going to have to start thinking about management needs to start thinking about, okay, IT's not just go down to Best Buy and buy a computer and stick it in here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have to go into that piece. So it's just a little more forethought and a little more budgeting could save them a lot of money.
Correct. And I couldn't agree with you more. Many times, again, it's just something that's not seen and you don't know. But, these individuals have gotten much smarter. And now with the tools that are available that are just working at light speed nowadays, it's making it much easier for them. So we have to be much more vigilant of what steps we're taking to protect. And it's not just, I think everyone plays a role here. It's not just the management company. It's not just the security provider. It's everyone because, if you have one vulnerability and they attack that one vulnerability, they're in. So it's, that's why it's important to have these conversations and putting it out there so that, the managers that are on the call, the board members that are on the call, just ask the question, what are we doing about this? What steps are we taking? Maybe bring in a professional such as you guys to have the conversation and guide you in the direction that, okay, look, these are the steps that you could take, and this is how you could phase into it. Or those associations that are, look, we want a full protection. This is the way we do it. So I think that leads us into, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I don't know, one quick thing to think about. Maybe put on the board agenda every 90 days. Where are we at? Cybersecurity update, or our passwords, changed. Because that's the other side. Everybody gets complacent with password or password 123 or, my dog's name is Fluffy, or, not on my network. Or you've seen them all, but passwords actually need to be changed regularly. So if you put it in your agendas for your management meetings and you put it in your agendas for the board meetings and talk to them about it and go so far as bringing us in to talk to the board or the residents, because in their houses, they have the same problems. They don't know that they have problems there. Senior scams with seniors is a big thing too.
Yep.
So, those types of things is just add it to the yearly agenda of things that you can do to help the community as a whole.
Correct, completely. And we have an excellent question here. It's an anonymous person, but this is a great question, whoever asked this question. And the question is, many CAMs now work from home and manage multiple properties. What specific questions should a board ask the potential CAM to discover their level of security in their home-based computer? They're also concerned because they have access to the HOA bank accounts. So I'm not sure if you want to take this one, Andre or Scott. This is a great question here.
Yeah, the first thing is that laptop or that computer should be totally a company-owned computer. And we know, Affinity has great, IT side and making sure that the firewalls and the software and all of that is up to date. But there should be a policy to make sure that the kids can't use the computer. They can install Fortnite, they can install Candy Crush and all of these apps, because we know some of these companies are questionable when it deals with China and things like that, that is actually getting and stealing the information. It's in their terms and condition that they have full access to the device. So policies in place for the manager that, hey, when you're not using the computer, you lock it, you make sure the rule is clear at home that nobody can use the computer. This is a business computer. And then if they are working, let's just say at the Starbucks, that they're working, just outside of the home environment, just going back to certain firewalls, because back in the days, you would have a $3,000 firewall that would be in the corporate office. But now you can get what is called a software firewall to do the exact same thing that $3,000 firewall would do with not even, for a few dollars a month. So there's different, VPN and things like that. We don't want to go too technical, but there are definitely different ways you can make sure that that property manager is working securely no matter where they are.
Yeah, correct. That's super great question. Very important. I know, at least from our side, we always, bringing up the password protection.
Yeah.
We have policies in place that are automatic and require certain characters. And, I deal a little bit with the IT team and people are just, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And, it's difficult to explain, but, now when we're going through these kind of webinars, I see we have some of my managers, hopefully they'll understand why we have these policies. And it's equally as important, even for the on-site properties, whoever asked that question. You know, we try our best, you know, to make sure if you don't have firewalls, that we have some kind of virtual computer that connects somewhere else. Because if you don't have these things, this is where you could find yourself, you know, very, very, very vulnerable, and it's very easy for you to become vulnerable. So I wanted to ask here, let's say in the event, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
You just keep in mind, staff that's on site, when they're not at their desk, their computer should be locked.
Yep.
People tend to look around, especially front desk staff. You know, somebody can get in there, drop something in there real quick, keep an eye on it. That's another important thing to keep in mind.
Yep. Yep. It's the simple things that make the big difference. So I think about a year or 2 years ago, we took away the ability of being able to use a USB drive.
Yeah.
And because, you know, anyone could drop a USB, oh, grab it, let me see what's in here, boom, plug it in. You don't even realize you just infested the computer. And as Andre said, I mean, I didn't know that stat, that they'll hang around for 90 days before they do anything. So it's these little things, but you have to be working with the right professionals for them to guide you. And there's reasoning behind all of this. You know, there's a reason. And look at Key Biscayne, $105,000. What, you know, mistakes happen, but that's a big mistake. So, and kind of wrapping this in, and I know, you know, let's say there is a data breach. I guess I'll gear this towards you, Andre. What are the legal implications, or what have you seen? Obviously, you're not an attorney, but what are the legal implications on that, and what are the vulnerabilities that could affect the property's reputation?
Yeah, so there's right now there's a House Bill 473 that's out there where there is a law now that says that if more than 500 records have been exposed, you do have to notify. However, there's no teeth in it. There's nobody enforcing it and things like that. But there's a House Bill 473 that's making its way that will basically put penalties. So where if there is a breach and you know someone's social security number or date of birth or any of that PII information, you have to notify the state. You have to notify the person that was affected. You have to provide them the credit monitoring, like a LifeLock or one of those type of things, credit freezes and so forth. But just and that's kind of why it's kind of no one's talking about it, is because there is no law when it comes to HOAs where you know they have to do something. Nobody's forcing it because unfortunately IT is not a regulated market.
Okay, makes sense. Well, yeah, that's a shame because there is a lot of data that's out there. I mean, you can't, based on statute, you can't give emails or telephone numbers out. So imagine someone just getting that information and how they can abuse that. So I definitely want to bring you in here, Scott. I know that you're the expert when it comes to like the solutions. So how do like the technologies with security cameras, access controls, you know, the IoT, the Internet of Things, for those that don't know, how do those contribute into enhancing cybersecurity? And what role does that residents play in maintaining their systems within their communities?
Opens a bunch of holes.
That it does.
But it goes back to, you know, I've served on boards, I've been involved in communities, and trying to teach some boards about the importance of spending money on infrastructure and spending money on the right people to do it. It's not everybody has these skills. There's a lot of people that are going to school and go, I took a class in cybersecurity, things like that. No, make sure the people you use have reputation, they have experience. The best thing I can say after 25, 30 years in this business is anybody that you use to do anything that involves your infrastructure, make sure, one, they've got a plan of what they're going to do and you're aware of what they're going to do. They're going to add something to your network. Make sure your IT guys are involved. Yes, it's a cost to bring them in, but it's a cost not to bring them in too.
Yeah.
So they have to understand that. The other side of it is, yeah, everybody wants to put a Google Nest thermostat or a wireless, and they go, oh no, I got my curtains hooked up. All these things in IoT are coming out, and that goes back to there again, making sure the routers are secure. They understand what security on routers is. If not, there's a lot of lessons out on YouTube. They can go, you know, for their home, they can figure that out and just start beefing up their own security. Because in HOAs, it's not so much because they're separated by their own individual houses.
Mhm.
When they get into high rise and things like that, there's more of a network that's involved in it. So not only does the management have to beef up that network and monitor and make sure they don't have any rogue networks in there and that people are attaching to, because that's a big thing, spoofing Wi-Fi. They put in a different repeater and all of a sudden it looks like the same repeater, and now you're on their network and you're doing everything across their network.
Wow.
So
Wow.
having the building checked, scanned, I mean, there's tools out there that we use that we come in and plug it into the network, and we can scan the network and see how many devices are added, what's been done, monitoring. There's monitoring services that we can implement so that the building gets monitored. So that somebody comes in, plugs something in that's weird, the system will notify you right away. Hey, somebody plugged this into this switch somewhere in there that they shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
And really, it's making sure that the people that are installing network gear in your building understand networks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not have somebody on your call list that can come in and before they put this in and help them put it in properly, so you don't create more holes. And
Correct.
that's always recommended. If they're not, yeah, okay, I can do this, I don't need help. Well, you're going to stick it on my network. I'm responsible for the network. Make sure your network guy is there when they put it in so he can check, make sure ports are shut off that don't need to be open, things like that. So you're closing the holes. So that's the whole thing. It's like taking a shovel around the yard and burying gopher holes. As soon as you bury one, another one can open. So you want to make sure you at least know where all the gopher holes are.
Of course, makes sense. And it's bringing it back to the security cameras. I think a lot of people don't know, especially with the IP cameras, that those need passwords. And if you leave them wide open, hey, there you go. All of a sudden, everyone's seeing what's going on. How did you know that was in the pool? And it's just a random resident that knows. So it's those little details that you have to pay attention to.
And it's making sure you don't leave anything with default passwords, because every default password in the world is available on the internet. Just go Google what I need the link system password for a router, and it'll give you these 4 are the most popular.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener, and it's important. I know, again, we have several managers here, is that now, as like security cameras are going to be an important thing. You have the new legislation that's requiring high rises to have, cameras or have lights and so forth. So if you're going to be going through that project, that you're having the network discussion, with someone that's a specialist there, because a lot of people install, electricians are known to install low voltage, so they install cameras, but they're not network guys. They're just not. Their strength is there. So when you're bidding these projects out, to make sure you're keeping that top of mind. Andre, based on your experience, how have associations successfully navigated through the cybersecurity challenges, and what are some of the best practices that you would recommend?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I normally see where associations are not, they're still hindered on that. And it's a real eye opener because, again, just, 5-10 years ago, cyber was never it wasn't even a line item. I mean, I was part of the office supply budget line item for many years. I finally got my own IT line item on these budgets now. And, a lot of times too, you'll have board members that have experience in IT. But a lot of times it's, they're much older, they're retired, so they know how it was back in the days. But again, things have changed and cyber threats are way up. So they think they can just go to Best Buy, pop in a computer, plug in McAfee antivirus, and everything's okay. But the truth is, if you're not spending anywhere from 1% to 2% of your top line annual budget on cybersecurity and IT, you give, Scott or I 20 minutes and we can easily find issues on your network because you're not spending enough. You're not investing. We had an incident. I don't know if I had told you this, Scott, but it was a condominium and their access control got hacked. Right here in Hallandale Beach. I won't say the name.
Wow.
Access control got hacked. You then had the front desk, like where the elevators for the fobs, that was down. The car reader to get into building, that was down. They had to hire 24/7 security. And this was one of the buildings where when you get out the elevator, it goes straight into the unit. And why? Because their access control was an old Windows 7 computer that was still kicking and going. And the hacker basically saw that. They stayed in the system. They see what it did. they put ransomware, and they said, hey, if you don't pay us $300,000, we're going to shut down your system. And the association refused to. They refused to pay it in Bitcoin, and then they took down their system. And for about 6 weeks, this association was down. So best practices, budget. It needs to be budgeted. It's not even someone coming in once a year to look at it. Cybersecurity, hackers don't just decide to break into your systems once a year. It's a constant daily monitoring, alerts, and security services on your systems and on your network. And I would also say another best practice is if your camera vendor, your access control, your elevator system, your HVAC, your lighting, all of these items plug into the network. Don't just let these vendors come into your systems and now all of a sudden on your cell phone you can control something and you didn't tell the IT guy, hey, this company is doing this. Talk with them and let's say, okay, let's make sure everything is up to par with the security. Because if these vendors that just come in and just plug in the access control cameras and things like that, they just plug in and they leave it right open, as Scott was saying. And this is where these vulnerabilities happen. And I can tell you, I've done about, like I said, about 150 condominiums in my time frame. We service about 75 right now. And that Key Colony news article happens at least once a month. It's just not making the news. Someone just leaked it to the newspaper, but it's happening. And what's happening is then the district managers and the board members, they're just saying, hey, let's just sweep this under the rug. Let's just pay it out. Yeah. Let's get this past us. But I get calls once a month from associations that get hacked.
Wow. Yeah, it's a reality. I didn't know it was at that frequency. It's important to know. And again, I think this goes to, especially from a management side, this goes to the importance of really putting together a strong team, and not rushing into these projects. Because listen, from our side, we're always getting constant pressure of this needs to get done tomorrow. But the truth is, as you stated, I pulled out my phone real quick to do the math. All right, I know what security costs a year, 24/7. 6 weeks down is almost $40,000 in security services alone. So, and that's assuming just one guard 24/7. So that's some serious money that again, the association never had budgeted. So I like the approach of having, okay, look, this is what a rough percentage would be. I'm sure once a professional comes in, or once you guys come in, you could say, look, these are the vulnerabilities you have. This is how we, using that analogy, this is how we cover those holes. But yeah, that's serious. That's serious for an association. And imagine if they tapped into the fire alarm panel and having to do fire watch. Like you said that, and I freaked out. Yeah. That would be some serious challenges there. But I have a question here that I want to address. I think the anonymous person here, we startled the juices in their mind. So they said here, what happens with board members and access to bank records if they're on their personal computer? And using the example of, having their family and kids on it, does that create breaches as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few properties where they actually have a dedicated computer in the management office. But if that's not realistic for every property, I would then say definitely make sure with your bank that you have policies in place such as two-factor authentication. That way, even if the hacker got your password, then they don't have the board member's phone. But I have seen board members get the two-factor authentication prompt and then click the yes button to let the bad guy in. So, Scott and I, we can do everything in the world to do the best to protect, but it just takes that one click for that user. And that goes to now why education is so important. We provide annual cybersecurity training for our clients, where we're not only training the board members, but we're training that guardhouse, who's that third-party security company who doesn't know, well, let me be nice, who's not too technological, he doesn't know too much on technology, and they just click, click, click. And what they don't know is sometimes they click, 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 and boom, now they're bad guys in the computer. Now they see the resident database. And now that we've had scenarios, one client in Aventura, the mouse was literally, well, they weren't our client yet, but the mouse was literally moving. And the bad guy was just clicking away. It was building link, and they were just clicking away on building link. So don't just think, oh, we have something in the cloud, so we're protected, right? No, 80% of attacks happen on the cloud, not local.
Yep, yep. And you mentioned about the two-factor authentication, 2FA. Oh, man, when we implemented that a while ago for our association, it was a nightmare, but we knew that it was the right thing to do. And just as a tip for those board members that are on, like, we took away the right to be able to ACH from any board member, from any association account. It has caused a problem with some associations because, hey, let's just send them a wire. But at the end of the day, we're here to protect you. So that's a tip. So a lot of banks will do it, that, it'll either require a phone call, 2FA, and depending on the amount, a phone call as well. But we just decided, look, with what's going on in associations, the way associations, they don't have excess funds to even deal with a $5,000 loss. We're just going to take it away completely. We'll do things with, online. We either use a P card. There's other ways of doing it, but yeah, there's small things that you can do in the interim to protect yourself from there.
I love
So
that. Security over convenience. I love it.
yeah, 100%. It's important. Listen, we're human. We're human, and I think the way you said it as well is that sometimes the way these things happen is when we're most vulnerable, or when we're having the most difficult day and we just need to move. But we get pushback. We do get pushback. We just had to make a big payment to a contractor and they wanted it wired ASAP. And we're like, look, there's no way of wiring it. We're going to have to cut you a check. You're going to have to go through this process that way, because to wire 150 grand, if we wire it to the wrong account, we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult situation. So, Scott, I want to bring you in because I know you're the expert when it comes to the technology and the strategy. So talk to me a little bit about what are the hottest tech solutions to save time, money, and potentially labor, while increasing, the property values. Because that's important for associations to keep in mind. When you make these investments, you are increasing the value of your properties as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of people that are going through renovation. So anytime your property is entertaining a renovation project, it's always cheaper to bring in kind of the other things that you want to put in there, because you're tearing up walls, you're doing things so other things can be put in place. Just at least look at it, see if you have the budget for it, those types of things. The main thing is I would suggest to all the boards is have a technology plan. We want to do X, X, and X in the building. Okay, we want digital locks added. We want to offer a better amenity, Wi-Fi throughout the building, things like that. I know that buildings right now are having a hard time. They're spending a lot of money on BDA systems for buildings that have high rises. That gets expensive. They didn't put a DAS system in. They're have cellular issues in some of the buildings. And then you've got all the engineering that you have to go through and things like that. So associations are spending an exorbitant amount of money to comply with state regs. But also take advantage of that. And when you're doing that, you're opening pathways. And let me tell you, running pipe before you pour concrete is always cheaper. So you get things. Older buildings tend not to have a lot of pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big thing. Even if you just put infrastructure in place as a
Yeah.
placeholder and say, okay, we're going to do this project in 2 years, but I would have them start looking at and say, okay, we want to do X, X, and X as far as technology, and then bring somebody in to figure out what it's going to cost you in a rough thing. And sometimes, like I said, it's cheaper to do it now than later, but maybe there's pieces you can do while you're doing other things like infrastructure, put them in place. So when you come back to do it, it's already there. You've already spent that money and you're not tearing things apart again. But technology wise, what's hot right now is most associations, because it's the easiest to do, is to do digital locks.
Okay.
Phone to do that. It saves a lot on keys. It's very manageable. It's very controllable. It's just like access control. It's very controllable. If you don't have the keypads and the stuff, it's in the lock, so you can retrofit those. The thing to keep in mind, you're going to have to put some sort of network across the building. So look at a managed network. Managed Wi-Fi networks are much better than just sticking access points up. And the reason I say that is, one, if for security reasons, we can lock it down. Two, there's a lot of technology that's going to be rolling out in the next 5 years that use managed Wi-Fi services. Because if you do it the right way, there's also a technology called Passpoint. If anybody's looking at managed Wi-Fi, make sure you ask your vendor about putting Passpoint in. Passpoint is a little chip that your cell phones can attach to the Wi-Fi and get cell signal. So it saves, it's a lot cheaper to have one system than putting a DAS system in, as a distributed antenna system,
Yeah.
because some buildings can be $800,000-900,000 to put them in. But if you put managed Wi-Fi in, you get multiple value out of it, and there's a bunch of stuff coming down that pipe as well. I was with a couple of vendors last night, and we were talking about what's coming down. Why should we go this way? Why should we convince people to be on managed Wi-Fi? And there's a multitude of reasons. People always ask me, well, what is technology? That's a big question. What do you guys consider technology? It's anything you plug into the wall with electricity is technology. There's technology in it, can be controlled by it, hooked up to it, you can do things. We're seeing a lot of sensors, using sensors throughout buildings, throughout HOAs. I had a big discussion with an HOA last week about how do they manage their sprinklers, how do they manage their water pumps for their fountains. All this stuff technology can be put on it, and you can manage it better without having to have somebody run out there and do it.
Yeah.
Pumps going bad, you can put frequency sensors on it. So what the frequency sensor does is it starts to sense that the motor is getting weird and alert you, hey, the frequency's off. Go out and buy a motor and sit it when you can afford it, versus it going down in the middle of something and you got to shut everything down.
Everything down, yeah.
Twice as much money. So there's a lot of things along that line, and then preventive maintenance. Let me tell you, of everything I've always seen, I've been a big advocate of preventive maintenance. Check. Preventive maintenance will save you more money in either an HOA or an association than anything else, because you're not allowing your infrastructure to rot. Think about what happens in the sewer systems, how much money we're paying because they let the sewer systems all over the city and the county rot, tearing up roads, everything else. Same thing applies to your buildings. As your buildings get older, stuff rots if you don't pay attention to it. And that gets very costly, and that hurts their budgets.
Makes total sense. It's it's in those little things where you gain the most, when no difference than when you're working on, you put in that extra effort and you get the benefits of it. So it's those little things and working with the right provider. Andre, I want to bring you in. What are the things that you've seen from a tech solution side to either increase value or increase time for managers or for the association?
Yeah, just going back to making sure that you do have an IT budget, a cybersecurity budget, because all your, kind of like Scott was saying, if you kick the can down the road, you're going to have a huge technology debt. And then now you're going to have to do an assessment because nobody's upgraded the computers. Computers should be upgraded every 3 to 5 years. And if you're doing it every 8 to 10 years, and now you have, several computers that need to be upgraded at once because they just, crashed on you, then it's just bad for the property, bad for the values of the property, because now you have to do an assessment or you have to increase your HOA. Some cool things I am seeing though is I got a call the other day from a client, and they wanted Wi-Fi near the garbage dumpster area. And I was like, why would someone want Wi-Fi there? And it was because they have a thing now with the garbage company where if it's 75% full, it will now actually send the garbage truck out. But if it's less than 50%, it will skip a day. So that way you don't have a truck actually just coming for a can that was only 20% full, for example. So that was pretty cool. And then I've seen another one, same thing with the sprinklers, where it connect with the national weather, and if it rained 3 hours before or whatever, it can then adjust the sprinkler system. So I'm cooling, and of course the EV cars, right? Everybody puts that in their garage. Everybody, but then the garage has no Wi-Fi, so now you got to run cables there. But then, and then of course, people now want, when you're driving, you're on a Zoom call or you're in a meeting, and they have to stay outside of their building, because once they go into their building, there's no cell phone reception in the garage. So now we're getting a lot of calls with that. We just did a big project in Bal Harbour for that. And then the beach, everybody wants Wi-Fi in the beach. Everybody wants Wi-Fi in the pool. And you want to make sure that your neighbors aren't using it, right? So there's security in there. So I'm really liking the cool projects that's coming through. And so yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think it's it's not going to stop, right? All these new neat tools. Number one, it helps the business because there's a profitability side of things, being much more efficient with the staff, being more efficient on the way that you're handling your accounts. So the customer also benefits from it. But I think it's important to keep top of mind what Scott mentioned a little bit earlier is don't just look at things. If you're opening up a building, don't just look at things today. Bring in the right providers. And even if it's, look, we don't have the budget now, but do we run that the cabling right now? Cabling is cheap. Maybe the equipment itself is expensive, but hey, we have the cabling in. When we open the building, it's there, and then we're ready to rock and roll when we can. So I think those are great nuggets to take away, especially for those associations that are older and going through projects. I know both of you work really closely with a lot of developers, and you're already giving this, sharing this knowledge with the developers. But for those buildings that are already in place, it's important to keep top of mind what Scott had mentioned. I want to address. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, think about this. Right now in the city of Miami, there's 758 buildings, and they're building 3 to 4 new ones every week.
Yeah.
In the county, there's 1,795 buildings.
Wow.
So of all if they build 5 a week or 4 a week or 2 a week or whatever, there's still 1,700 buildings out there that need some kind of upgrade to even compete with these new classy, people, the Aston Martins of the world, the Towers, the Bentleys, all these new name brands that are coming in. Yeah, they're more expensive, but if your building is next to it, guess what? You got to compete for sales with these guys. Yeah, they may sell at 6 million and you may sell at 3, but you're going to lose people to the other. So what attracts you? There's even some nice luxury buildings that were built in 2005, 2010. They need to upgrade their technology because it wasn't there. So it's a matter of just, all I'm saying is have somebody come in, have us come in, talk to the board, help them make a plan, think about what they want to do, and put a plan together and say, okay, we want to do this. We got to save this money. Every time I run into boards, it's always like an emergency that I got to go fund this. Nobody pre-plans for something they need to do. And that I think is not fiscally responsible of boards.
Yep. Makes. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. You're completely right. I mean, listen, the phones change every year. So the technology, you need to be able to keep up with it. And you're right. There's several buildings that are in 08 where they're having those problems. And I think what you mentioned about those managed networks, that's a great tip to take away, that if you're having that challenge, to contact you guys and see, if there's a better solution rather than having to put all those antennas in place. So if you're going to compete, if you're in the Brickell area, actually, I don't even think it matters where you're at. You're competing with your neighboring property. If you want to keep values up, which is one of the reasons we purchase properties, right? Whether it be your first home or your investment property, you want the value to increase. So that means you have to invest into that product or into that building.
Well, keep in mind, for the HOAs, the big thing for them is EV.
Yeah.
And there are revenue opportunities for EV in HOAs. I mean, money can come back to help pay for these systems. There are companies out there that will finance these systems and take the revenue. They'll manage it for them. They'll do everything turnkey. But keep in mind that if you look through your community, there's probably 1 in 10, 1 in 5, depending on what it is, houses that have EVs. You got to look at, what a lot of people don't look at that infrastructure is the energy.
Yeah.
You have a car, now you have a house and you have a car and you're plugging it in. Well, does FPNL have a big enough transformer?
Correct.
These are things that we have to look at. Is there ways to supplement it? Do you have enough green space to put solar to generate revenue? Any community that has covered parking should be putting solar panels on their covered parking.
Excellent.
Cheapest and the easiest way, even if they just use it to supplement their power that they're using for the association. But for EVs and everything else, it is the cheapest way to generate power because you're not taking up any space. You got to have it covered anyway. So you put the solar panels on the covered parking.
Excellent. Those are some great tips. Thank you, Scott. I want to address Alan's question here. He asks, what about ACHs related to auto debit utility bills? would those be okay? So I want to clear up. I know that probably had to do with my response with not doing ACHs or e-checks. So when you're doing ACHs, I could speak for us how our policies are. As Andre mentioned, our team members are on Affinity laptops, which do have cybersecurity and do have all the functionalities that to protect. So yes, like FPL, water bill, those are set up. You set it up once and set it and forget it. What I was talking a little bit more has to do when you're doing wires or you're doing one transfer a quarter. Those are the ones that we've completely eliminated. So things that are ACH set up, yes. The way we try to protect those is making sure that our team members are working from company laptops. So when they're putting in those bank account numbers and logging in, we also have requirements that you can't save on Google passwords. Like people think that it's okay to save on Google passwords. It's not okay. So yes, I don't want you to automatically say, okay, well, we can no longer do any kind of ACH payments. We have another question here from Paul, which says, we have a CAM that does all our banking and record keeping at their office. As a board member wanting to look at the records, can they send, I guess, the packages securely? Or what system do they use? I would recommend, listen, when you're sending bank statements and you're sending financial statements, many times, if if you're sending a full report, yes, they will include financial statements. We've been fully transparent. We've been trying to move all our clients onto logging onto our web portals where that they have their login and they're grabbing their financials. We do get some pushback, just being fully transparent. Some clients that want you to send me the PDF. So in those cases, I would highly recommend doing it with security passcode, but don't send the security passcode in the email with the file. So ideally, if you want to follow good protocols, and I'm sure Andre and Scott could probably address this better than I, but I would recommend try to use the management company system where it's either uploading to a portal that has a password that's only that you should only have. For those managers and board members, you should not be sharing passwords with board members. So that's why we want the 2FA. But I don't know if you want to add any more to that, Andre, on the financial documents and that stuff.
Yeah, we've seen scenarios where a board member's personal Gmail got compromised, and then you had bank information from the association, and that bank had the full ACH information, full account number.
Wow.
And when you call some of these banks, there's security questions. And what are the security questions? Tell us a transaction that happened 2 days ago for the amount. And just like that. And remember, these cyber criminals are not here in the United States. It's bots. They're in, Iran, Russia, China. This is their business. This is their full-time job to get your money. It's not a kid, although there was a kid in Pinecrest that took down Miami-Dade public school system, but it's typically not a kid, a 17-year-old in a hoodie, working in his mom's basement. This is someone's full-time job.
Yeah, and it's volume. It's volume now with the way AI, as Scott mentioned, has helped. It's volume. They're probably contacting thousands, if not millions, of people, and they get that 1% to hit. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So just to wrap up here, we're coming up on the hour. I want to give each of you an opportunity. We've had some people asking of how they can contact you. I guess if you could, I'll start with you, Scott, of how they can contact TechGC, what your specialty is, and then also we'll do our part to e-blast everyone, not just the video, but where the video will be posted, and we'll make sure to share both Affinity, Scott, and Andre's contact information.
The best way to reach us is through our website, techgc.net. There's a form on there that you can fill out and it'll send it to us. You can reach me at scott@techgc.net. I'm always there, and we are consultants. We don't offer the actual services. Some of our consultants that work for us do, but our services are independent of. We're going to make the recommendations and look out if you want to contract somebody like Andre to do the work, you can, and that's fine. But we'll make our recommendations to other service providers that meet the criteria that we've been. Everybody that works on our on the team, they've been in the business 25 to 30 years. So you're dealing with people that have been around the block. We got together out of tired of pounding our heads against the concrete wall trying to convince people that you need to pay attention to technology for 25 years. So we decided to get together as a group, and we're located across the United States. We're not all right here. I have people all over the country. We work all over the country as well. So it's just a matter of, let us help you design a plan. We'll come in, we'll design a plan, recommend technology to. If you want us to manage it, we will manage it. You got a project that you're about to undertake on technology, well, we can help manage that plan and make sure it gets executed and the final results are there. We even offer to new developers a 2-year after they finish management. So as people bring, because typically after developer turns over, there's a bunch of changes in technology. And, they don't like what the developer picked or, things like that. Certain contracts are not amenable to the new board. So we stay on for a couple of years to ensure that continuity stays through there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Andre?
My office number is 786-664-8275. And our website is ARK, A-R-K, Solvers, SOLVERS.com. And you can book a 15-minute with me. My calendar link is there. And, I love to speak with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. As I stated earlier, we want to thank you both for really being here. I think this was a conversation that was definitely long overdue. I can't believe how quickly the hour passed. So I loved all the golden nuggets that you guys shared with us today. I think we should definitely schedule another one, maybe go into some potential protocols or policies. That way we can share with the managers and the boards. For those board members and managers, we hope that you were able to take away some information today where you could share it with your fellow colleagues or share it with your fellow board members. We will be putting the webinar up on our YouTube page, which is managedbyaffinity.com. If you wanted to reach us directly, you can call 305-325-4243, or you can visit our website, managedbyaffinity.com. Thank you all, and I wish you all a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right.